love that, an audacious target. Uh, Cause throwing me now. I was like, have I got an audacious target? I need one. I want one.
We'll sort one out when we next meet. Welcome to How to Take the Lead, the podcast where we challenge the myths and stereotypes of what it means to be a leader today and help you to succeed in post without compromise. I'm Lee Griffith.
And I'm Carrie-Anne Wade, and together we will be your guides, questioning everything we've ever learnt about leadership, sharing our experiences along the way, and inspiring you to make a real impact in your role.
Visit howtotakethelead.com for show notes, past episodes, and to join our community.
Enjoy this episode.
So we are back, episode 5, series 3 of How to Take the Lead. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes. If you're a regular listener, please do share it with someone you know so that even more people can get involved with the conversations. What the other things I need to say in my roll call? We're now on YouTube.
We're on YouTube.
So if you're watching us there, hello. We'd love it if you subscribe, like this video, and all of the good stuff that YouTube likes and will mean this video and others like it are pushed out to more people. And we've launched our Substack community. So this is our new email, come behind the scenes blog, come private episodes, bonus episodes.
Maybe the book club.
Lots of good stuff exclusive to our sub. See, I can't even pronounce it. I'm so excited. I can't. My teeth just want to race ahead of the word. So yeah, lots of good things for our Substack community. Go to howtotakethelead.com for all the different links that you need. Everything's there that you need. So
it's all there.
I think that's all the preamble out the way. Let's get down to the business. Well, no, let's ask how you are first, because that's a bit rude just to get down to business, isn't it? Like that. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
You know, it's because we keep saying 2023, year of action. We're like straight to it, not got time for the small talk. Just want to get on with it. But I am doing all right. Thank you very much. At the time of recording this episode, it is 6 weeks until my wedding. Well, my wedding. No, well, not our wedding, because it's not me and you. My wedding. I'll just give up. You know what I meant. I didn't want to sound like a bridezilla by saying my wedding, and then realise our wedding sounded even more strange in this context.
That should have been like breaking leading news if we were going to announce we were getting married.
I mean, some weeks you probably feel like you might as well be married to me, the amount of times you have to see my face.
I don't need a prison sentence, though. I am already betrothed to someone.
Oh dear. Anyhow, sorry, we've digressed. How are you, Lee?
I am good, thank you. My voice feels a little bit scratchy today, so I have a fear that it might give up on me at some point, or I might sound like I've just smoked 20 before I came onto the.
Have you? Have you just? Smoked? I was going to say this is going to be more breaking news. I didn't even know you smoked.
No. Anyway. The irony of me losing my voice in an episode where we're talking about making your voice count is not lost on me. But as ever, what I always say is your voice isn't always what you say. It's other things that you do as well. So we've touched on this in a few episodes already, this series and in previous series, the notion of making your voice count as a leader. What are the facts? What do we already know? Well, if you look at things like the Edelman Trust Barometer, the latest iteration of which was out earlier this year, business is the most trusted institution, so not kind of non-governmental organisations.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say numbnut there.
Sorry. My next sentence was not the government. So
yeah, that's where I thought we were going. Sorry.
Not the media. So business is the most trusted institution. When you look at who people trust the most, they trust their CEO, they trust their co-workers, they trust their communities. It's a very local focus. And 69%, this is an amazing stat, 69% of employees look at the societal impact of an organisation when considering a job.
Wow.
So they either
that does surprise me. I'm not sure why, but that feels high.
Yeah, and they either strongly expect an organisation to be doing something, or it's a deal breaker for them if they're not. So that's a really big stat that hit me. 63% will buy or advocate for brands that align with values and beliefs. That
Of course.
feels right. But we look at leaders of organizations, you are selling a
Yeah.
product, even if it's a service, that you have something to offer to someone else. So that alignment of values and beliefs is really important. And the pure facts are people want more societal engagement from organisations, not less. They expect chief executives to take a public stand on issues, including things like how employees are treated, climate, discrimination, and they want to make sure that actions match the words. So, you know, that's just one report that shows staff, customers, communities are really looking to organisations to represent them. And we spoke earlier on in this series about all the stuff that's going on at the minute: cost of living, issues with equality, diversity, inclusion, tackling bias, climate change. Um, and then we're almost at that stage, I think, where if you don't have anything to say on one or many of those issues, or if you're burying your head in the sand, then you're probably creating a bigger spotlight on you and your organisation. Um, but then we'll probably get into this conversation a bit later. If you're a bit hypocritical when perhaps your words don't match up
Mhm.
with the same integrity as your actions. Or no, I don't mean that. When your actions don't match up with the
With
same
your
integrity of your words.
words.
So today I really want to explore in a bit more detail how a leader can and should be using their voice. And as I've already said, it doesn't just mean the kind of verbal things that they say. There are many ways that you can be heard as a leader. So I want to kick us off, Carrie Ann, by getting your views. It's a slightly leading question because obviously the evidence just pointed to. But should leaders have more of a role in society?
So, given the evidence that you have just presented to us, Lee, my short answer would be yes, absolutely yes. I think you've touched on some of this already in what you've said, but for me, I feel like as leaders, we are in a position of trust.
Mm,
Our stakeholders, whomever they may be, I'm going to call them our people. Our people, have interactions with us. They look to us to role model. They look towards us as leaders for signals about how maybe they should be taking action on things. So I absolutely think that that leaders should be having more of a role in society, and I think we have to realize as leaders that whether we like it or not, we do have influence and power. So we
mm,
have a responsibility, I think, to use it wisely, and to kind of be considered about what things we can really do make some positive change around in terms of that influence and power that we have. So,
yeah.
yes, my answer, I could have stuck with the short answer of yes, but I didn't. I expanded. But I'm
It would
assuming
be
you
a
agree that, yeah,
yeah,
the answer is yes, Lee.
yes. It would be a really short episode if we both just said, "Yeah, yeah, we agree. Bye,
The
bye."
end.
So let's get a bit more into the detail of it then. So what does it look like a leader having a role in society?
So I think there's something about, and you have mentioned this slightly already around voice. So I think we
Mm,
can sometimes think when we talk about leaders having a voice, we mean like physically speaking and having a voice. And I think actually, for me, what I'm talking about is speaking out. It might not always be out in, because out sounds quite confrontational, doesn't it? I guess
mm,
we say I've got to speak out on something, but speaking about the issues that really matter to the people that are closest to them, whether that
mm,
be colleagues, whether that be their local community, whether that be customers, whatever that looks like. As a leader, it's your job to have a voice and potentially advocate on behalf of
yeah.
those stakeholder groups, which I think, in terms of you saying what does it look like, means there is some work you need to do as a leader to understand what's important
Mm, mm,
to your local stakeholders in your community, so that when you are using your voice, it's aligning. You talked about values alignment, and I think that is absolutely important. But there's something as well about like the issues and topics that you are choosing to speak out on, have to be aligned, meaningful, relevant to the people that you're potentially, speaking out either on behalf of, to advocate for, or to enable some sort of change. So,
yeah.
so that's how it feels to me. But I think there are many different platforms that you have as a leader to do that, which not just about internally or even externally, just speaking opportunities, as it were. I think, every communication and interaction and engagement you're having is an opportunity for you to have influence. So for me, I think that making your voice count is about that influence and how you can use that influence and power that you have as a leader to make positive change and take action.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree with you. And action is primary word. That is what people are looking for. There has to be some kind of outcome to the things that people are thinking and feeling, and they're looking to leaders to be the ones that help shift that change, I suppose, isn't it? So for me, what does that look like? And I suppose to build on what you've mentioned, it things like once you've done that, check in with your stakeholders, understanding how those issues might be impacting locally, bringing it to maybe your board or your senior leadership team and having those uncomfortable conversations and really fleshing that out. And that you can determine collectively, it's not necessarily all on you about the action that you take, and making sure there's an alignment. And you've mentioned the word alignment, but there's an alignment in the board and the senior team around that as well. And part of that alignment and taking action could be around how you're empowering others in your organisation to take action. It's not necessarily about you fronting everything,
Mm.
but it's almost that when we've talked before about allyship, it's almost being an ally for others and giving other people a platform so that issues can be aired and whatever. But for me, there's something about the word persistence. It kind of sticks with me here because it's not about saying something once, ticking a box. It's about, like you've mentioned, making it part of your narrative, aligning it to your purpose. But there absolutely will be, you might not think straight away that there is a benefit to your organisation, but there will be. You need to find out what that is. And then that is how you weave it into your narrative.
Yeah, it's like having that golden thread, isn't it? And
Mm,
I couldn't agree more about this. Not a tick box exercise, as in, oh, I've mentioned this issue once publicly on my Twitter or whatever. Tick, done that, move on. And I think that very much works in conjunction with the action piece, because we're not just talking about making statements, or like just make a statement. It's that the so
mm,
what, and I think we do talk a lot actually on how to take the lead about that. And so what, there has to be a so what. It's not just for you to, like you say, be the mouthpiece for something without really truly thinking about what action can be taken. Um, yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought because there was something you said that I loved, and I did. The one time I didn't make a note, I haven't gone back to it, but it will come to me. I loved something that you said, and I thought, yes, more of that. But I love everything you say.
persistence.
No, it was
Persistent
before. It was before then,
before
but
that.
but yeah, I mean, I love everything you say, Lee. So that's the trouble, isn't
Okay.
it? I love it all. I can't remember which bit I love the most.
If it comes to you, feel free
I
to
will. I'll
interrupt.
just blurt it out, and you'll be like, "What? We've so moved on from that already."
So one thing I want to explore is this notion of how you balance perhaps your personal views on an issue with maybe what an organisational position is.
Big,
Yeah.
awkward pause from me now. Probably
Smug
like,
smile as
yeah,
I
smug
just
smile
hand
from
it
you.
your way.
Awkward pause for me. So the first thing I just want to talk about in this space about sort of balancing personal with wider is definitely, and you've mentioned this word already, the integrity piece.
Mm,
So I think if the place that you're coming from, you're acting with integrity, that's got to be the number one thing for me. If you feel like you are acting with professional and personal integrity and speaking out or having a voice, talking about something in different domains is the right thing to do, then it's highly likely to be the right thing to do, regardless almost of what, the
mm,
organizational position on that is. But I think there are some things that you can do, like testing stuff out
mm,
before maybe you broaden that conversation and use your voice in a bigger arena. So, we talk on here a lot about having a trusted network. So have you got peers, colleagues, a network of people that you can maybe test a few things out on before you're kind of putting those views out there to say, this is what I feel really strongly about. I want to start having this conversation, spark this debate, understand the reasons why you're worried about it, and kind of talk that through with
mm,
somebody. So hopefully that will give you that level of comfort or maybe confidence to have your voice and balance that. I think there is something about not feeling like you have to say things for the sake of it. And I know we're
mm,
saying don't not speak out, because I definitely think that's worse. But I say that almost on the flip side of, like, if you think there's an expectation that you'll toe a party line and everything inside you saying this isn't the right thing, we haven't made the right decision, whatever that is, don't feel like you have to toe it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
have that debate and conversation where you need to have it, whether that's, in your board meetings, wherever it needs to be, about, whether that organizational line or view is genuinely actually the right one.
Mm,
I think sometimes leaders can feel the pressure to just have to toe the party line, and I don't think that is always the right thing to do. And I think there's something about being curious and open about where maybe you feel that discomfort or that nervousness about my view being not aligned with the organization, or if I share this view and have a voice on this, I'm going to get in trouble somehow. Like, be curious about that, be open about that. What is it that's
mm,
making you feel that way? And is there something you need to do? Do you need to learn more about something? Do you need to ask more questions before
mm,
you've kind of fully formed that opinion that you want to share? And I guess, you know, for me, so I'll just talk about my day job. I choose not to share a lot of my political views on my public social media channels, for example, that I use more for my work kind of
mm,
professional life, because I don't always feel that's appropriate, because I do work in the NHS and I feel like there's an element of needing to be a little bit apolitical and not sway one way or the other. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel like I can say, for example, I absolutely support the nurses, junior doctors, everyone else's right to strike, because there's definitely action that needs to be taken
mm,
around
mm.
pay, which is a highly political and sensitive topic right now. But I feel like I can say that, and it's, I'm just making those choices about what and how I want to share things. But there are other
Sure.
things that I probably wouldn't say around. Well, I've said it now about the numbnuts, haven't I? So maybe I do just share my political views in public. But I think it's just about working through and testing out, what you currently feel comfortable with, but without getting stuck in a position where stepping outside of your comfort zone feels too much of a challenge, because sometimes you will have to have uncomfortable conversations and say things that other people will disagree with.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things to unpack in what you've
Sorry,
just
I
said
just
then.
totally rambled as well. Having done a really, like, short answer for the first question, I'm like, right, I'm all
You've
over this. I
overcompensated.
have. Yeah, I've overdone it.
So, I the point you make around the kind of being non-partisan in when you're in a, like, public office, completely agree with. But I do agree that that doesn't mean you need to stay quiet. I
Mm,
think the savviness of you in a leadership position is recognizing when you're representing your people, and you're reacting to perhaps the environment and the context of things that happen at the time. So you can keep it factual, you can talk about impact, you can say what needs to happen instead.
yeah.
That doesn't mean you're making a political point. You don't have to call the PM a bozo to make the point. If
I
you
mean, you
want
could
to,
if you
that's your
wanted to.
choice.
Yeah. It's all about choice, isn't it? Is what we're saying
Yeah.
there.
But you need to bring it back. Yeah, I've already said this, bring it back to what's the organisational gain and benefit. Make sure you're telling the story. Make sure you've got evidence to back it up, that you can humanise what's happening. Because I think that plays in very well, particularly if you're treading in maybe choppy waters of the topic where
Yeah.
others may frown upon it. Um, I think if people think something's your personal hobby horse or self-interest, then you might
Mm,
not get the backing that you probably need when we look at organisational versus, personal opinion. So I do think that bringing it back to what's the bigger picture, how is this going to benefit? I mean, maybe I'm being really optimistic here, but hopefully you're not working somewhere where you're so diametrically opposed in your thinking.
yes.
If you are, you've probably got bigger issues to deal with first
And
before you tackle this one.
yeah, and that's back to that values alignment piece, isn't it,
Yeah.
that we've already talked about? But you're absolutely right. If you've got literally living in the fear of saying something because it's like so opposite to what your organization stands for and believes in, you're probably not working in the right place.
And I know it can be more difficult the more senior you get. So, some people in an organization, they might have different hats. We work in public sector where they might be a union lead for something, but also have an operational or a clinical role. They might have some kind of professional interest outside of their organisation, and sometimes that can have opposing views and stances. So there, I think that's where you need to be having just open conversations with your leadership, with, if you're a CEO, having that with the chair or whomever, if you're a more junior member of staff, having that with the director, just trying to understand. And you can be clear when I'm talking on behalf of an organisation versus when I'm talking on your own behalf, as it were. I think in a lot of organisations, chief execs are seen as perhaps what they say is representing an
Mm.
organisation because they're the figurehead for the organisation. So I think that's where it can be a bit trickier, but it's about using your common sense in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
We've slightly touched on this, but I want to explore it a little bit further, and it's that fear of getting it wrong, being cancelled, not wanting to step outside your lane. They're all reasons you hear for leaders to avoid. And I get your point that you said earlier around uh, not feeling like you have to comment on everything, or if you don't feel like you've got to. But I would counter that with sometimes you need to lean into the discomfort
And yeah, and I think
and
that
not
was my
avoid things.
point about being curious, wasn't it? And
Mm,
open to like why you feel like you can't or shouldn't say something, or you don't have something to say on an issue that's so topical and relevant for your people or your stakeholders. It is that, don't just accept that, okay, that's it. Like, be curious about what that is and maybe educate yourself a little bit.
yeah,
And then actually your viewpoint might change and you might
yeah.
realize that you do have a strong opinion about something that perhaps you just didn't know enough about in the first place.
Yeah. And we've touched on this thing of a feeling of I don't want to be seen to
Mm.
be rocking the boat. I want to keep him with the in crowd. And, I'm just going to say it. You see that a lot in the public sector, with people trying to look up to, regional centre leaders and therefore feel like they can't really say anything for fear of ramifications. And I suppose I want to explore that because it's really easy for me, for us to sit here and say, well, you need to break out from the herd and you need to start standing up for what you believe in, act with integrity, all of that. But there are real complicated reasons sometimes why someone has that fear. And we saw that with some of the MPs when they had all the shenanigans going on,
Mm.
poor leadership behaviours, where MPs were just saying, look, I've got a mortgage to pay. I don't want to speak out on this because I know I'm going to get,
Yeah.
the cull and I've got bills to pay. I've got a mortgage to pay. So job security, financial reasons, there's a whole load of different ramifications that can, I suppose, deter someone from maybe living with their values and integrity. It doesn't always
Yeah.
pay the bills. So,
No.
what can you do?
Oh, God, why do you, this is the one where you pose all the hard questions, then ask me, and I'm like, I don't, I feel stressed by this. I can see why people feel stressed about putting their head above the parapet with all the politics that surround that sometimes, absolutely. But um, I don't know. I'll go back to it. It's easy to say it, and as we just said, not easy to do. But if you're doing the right thing and acting with integrity, sometimes that means having to do the uncomfortable thing. I think if you are in that situation where there is somebody, it's a regulator, I don't know, somebody external to your organisation, or there's some sort of hierarchy above you, like do explore and have those conversations about what the right thing is to do and whether it is the right thing to have a voice, even though it goes against maybe what everyone else in your sector is doing with
Mm,
your organisation. Because actually, if you've got a strong leadership team who all consistently, think that's the right thing to do, you will feel less alone. Although you might be the kind of mouthpiece for it
mm,
and the first person that speaks, actually having that support of others, I think, is really important. I think there are also ways, though, to challenge some of that without always having to be controversial. So I think there's something in the nuance of the narrative and making sure you've got the evidence and the facts to back
Mm.
you up. So you're not just gun ho, like swinging in with a random statement that's like so out there, but without that evidence to back you up. Because I think sometimes it's hard for people to quieten your voice, perhaps because you're not seen to be towing the party line, if you have actually got that evidence that backs up what you're
Mm.
saying, because then you know, where does somebody go from there in the argument without them demonstrating that they are actually operating with no integrity at all,
Yeah.
for whatever reason? So I think that's probably quite an important part of it. And I don't know, it is really hard to do, isn't it? And you know, I've had times in my career and quite recently where I've been challenged by those perceived to have more power than me, about why I've made a certain decision or why I've not done something. And you know, for example, being asked why I didn't stop a family member speaking to the press about an issue. And that was exactly what I was asked. Why didn't I stop someone from having a voice publicly? I mean, how unethical that feels, you know, I cannot begin to describe. And that was uncomfortable because I was definitely being put on the naughty step and basically being told, you know, we're not happy with what you've done because you haven't stopped this. But I felt that although that was uncomfortable and I didn't particularly like having that conversation, that I had acted with integrity. But I also knew that I did have that immediate backing of my own senior leadership
Mm.
team, which, you know, made me think, do you know what, you can say what you like and, you know, be as rude as you like to me, but organisationally, we know we've done the right thing.
Yeah.
And I have the evidence to back up and the fact of, you know, the facts of the matter that actually you in this other organisation don't have. So who are you to tell us that, you know, that we've done the
Yeah.
wrong thing? So
Dare them to prove
yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes it's that, but it is hard to do. And I think it does, it's a weird thing to say, it takes practice. But I think, you know, the first few times maybe that you do have to pipe up and go, "Oh,
Mm.
actually,
Mm.
I think something different," or "No, I'm going to say this, but I know I'm going to be on the naughty step," as it were. The first few times that does feel awkward and uncomfortable, and particularly, you know, if you're a personality type who assumes that's going to be conflict straight away, which you want to
Yeah.
avoid. But again, it's back to that point about you. If you are in a if you are in a leadership position, people trust you, and people are looking to you to advocate for them, make action happen, influence things. So it will be your job sometimes to say the things that other people don't want to
Yeah.
hear.
But that word around alignment is really important, and testing that alignment. Are you really sure that you stick your head up, that everyone else is going to step
Doesn't
up
stick
with
their heads
you?
down.
Don't all like retreat, because we've
Yeah.
seen that happen,
Yes,
and then
yeah, we have,
suddenly,
yeah.
so you know, don't just. And I always say this about change programs or anything in an organization. It's not good enough for you all just to sit around a table and then ask everyone, does everyone agree? And everyone just nods their head or something. And then they all go out and say 10 different versions of what
Yeah,
they've agreed in the meeting.
yeah,
You've really got to play that through and keep testing it and make sure that everyone will be aligned in words and actions in what you
mm,
do. Test it to make sure that you're representing the people in the way that they want to be represented, because there's nothing worse than you speaking out on an issue or taking action on an issue and that isn't what someone wants you to do, and therefore
yeah,
you could get criticism from both ways as well. So
yeah.
having that, yeah, really testing the alignment piece, I think is really
Mhm.
important. The public sector bit's really interesting, and maybe it's not unique to the public sector, but that is an experience that you and I have both had. And I often find that sometimes it's not even the topic in which you're speaking out in, it's more about whether your face fits.
Mm.
So some CEOs say what they want because their face fits, or maybe they're a big power player, you know, they've come from a well-performing organisation, or they've been around for a long time, or they're
Maybe
well
they know where
connected.
all the bodies are.
Yeah, maybe they do. Others could say exactly the same point, but then
Be
get
on the naughty
penalised.
step. Yeah, there's a
And they get
ramification.
passed over
Yeah,
for opportunities, they get sidelined, and there's lots of reasons for why that might be. So it's, yeah, it isn't necessarily a theme about what you're talking about or how they approach it, but more, you know, what your standing
mm,
is in the stakeholder map of power
mm,
and influence, I suppose. And that I have a real problem with.
yeah. Oh,
because I think that is not acting with integrity. That is ego and
mm.
yeah, just personalities at play, really.
And I think there's something maybe for another episode around that fear piece, because we started this part of the conversation talking about that fear of talking outside of
Mm,
your comfort zone or your potential sphere of influence, which is maybe what we're talking about here. And I do think that sometimes that you being seen as outspoken or not towing the party lines, well, not sometimes, the majority of the time, I would say, it says more about the other party than it
yeah.
says about you. And that was my point about maybe that other party is not operating with integrity. But I think it's also that, the fact that people might feel fearful to lead and act with integrity and empower others to have a voice and have a voice of their own just feels just not in touch with what's happening in the
Mm,
modern world today, and it makes me a bit sad. And I think, there's something more to explore, not around this topic, but around that leading through or by fear, or kind of
mm,
making
mm,
decisions based on fear of something, just
mm.
really worries me about kind of what that means for leaders and their organization.
Well, look, I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, but we see that played out in um, debates around allyship, around discrimination, around bias. This fear that someone needs to give up or lose something by standing up for something or someone else, and that's yeah. Let's put that on the agenda
Let's put
for a
that, yeah,
future.
get that on a Trello board.
But I would say, as a little side note, sometimes it is just the right thing to do,
Mm,
and the
yeah,
excuse of, I'm fearful of the ramifications. I think it's been used all too often for letting issues of discrimination pass
mm,
without challenge. So I do, I think it's worth saying here. It's worth saying in every
yeah,
every episode that as a leader we have to
mm,
reflect our own behaviours, what we're willing to let past, and lean into that discomfort if that's where it's coming from. And moving us on. So, how do you know when the line, that line of when is enough, or when to say yes to this thing but no to something else? Like, where's the
yeah.
gauge?
Yeah, I guess it's about how you're deciding where you focus your attention, isn't it? Because you've got
Mm,
you've got a voice to use, and by voice I guess we mean platform, because like we said,
yeah,
it could be in any kind of space, or in any shape that you're using that voice. Um and quite frankly, sometimes you are not going to have the time, energy, or capacity to have a voice on everything. So you will have to think about where you focus your attention. I think there has to be, God, alignment's the word of the episode, isn't there?
it
It's
is.
something around alignment to kind of your strategy, your vision, your
Yeah,
purpose, and that of your organization. So what are the things, what are the key areas that are really going to make the most difference for you to choose to use your voice for on that occasion? What matters most to you and your
yeah,
people? What are the things
yeah,
right now that matter most? Do you know that? And if you know that, they're the things that you should be talking about
yeah.
constantly and being persistent about, advocating for change or wanting to see something different. And
Sorry, just on that point, is that it for me, it's that, like, reframing. So you've got the issue, reframe it as an opportunity
mm,
for your organization. So if you were to take, I don't know, speaking up on cost of living, for example, if you tackle that as an organization, you could be doing great things for staff retention.
yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
so so it is about looking at the situation from again, it goes back to that organizational benefit piece.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
just
no,
had
no,
to.
no. Well, I think it leads on to what I was going to say, which is also that consideration of what you can genuinely have an impact on and take action. So if you start to think about what topics am I going to want to have a voice on? Do I want to have a voice on it or an opinion on it if I can't do something about it? So
Yeah,
actually, where can you take action? Where can you make a difference for people around the things that matter most to them? And that does sound very up here, doesn't it? But there'll be conversations and things you'll need to be doing in your organizations to take some of those decisions about what the priority areas you want to address right now.
yeah, and you've got to test that with
Mm,
your trusted network. You've got to test it with the people it's impacting, and there is, going back to that reframe thing. There's potential really shrewd business moves you could make. Unless if you say, I'm going to go all in on climate and doing stuff because that's really important to my people. Or we've got a really young workforce coming through, and they are purpose driven. They really want to be doing stuff around that. I can't quite see how it fits, but actually there's a whole
Mm.
business opportunity here for us, and we could just change our operating model and make
Yeah.
gains by just setting a really audacious target around something.
And I also think there is, I love that, an audacious target. Um, uh, 'Cause throwing me now. I was like, have I got an audacious target? I need one. I want one.
We'll sort one out when we next meet.
I think there's also something about the point around it doesn't always have to be your voice, but you have to
Mm-mm.
be empowering other people to have a voice. So maybe you're not going to be the person that's able to have the biggest impact on a certain topic, and that's okay. Just accept that. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be you, but you do have to still be having those conversations and scoping that out and working out, what matters most. Where can you, like say, where can you change things to have an impact, and who are the right people then
Mm.
need that and have that conversation and use their platforms to share that.
And the other thing I would, I suppose, caution leaders about, and I don't know about you, but I've certainly worked with enough in my kind of past life where I don't know, leaders get bored quickly of a message or a presentation, and they do it 2 or 3 times, and then they say, "Oh, you know, I'm sick of this now. I want to change it up." You've got to be persistent and consistent. And so I think as a leader, when you're trying to weigh up, have I done too much? You probably haven't done as much as you think you've done. You might not be getting through to those people that you're trying to reach. So you do need to be repetitive. You do need to try different approaches. If you look at it even just from a pure sales point of view, it takes anywhere between like 13 and 30 touch points for someone to make a buying decision. The same goes for someone to understand a message.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sense of persistent and consistent, don't just because you're personally bored doesn't mean that you've landed the message.
No, and also it's like how many times it takes a person who's regularly in touch with you,
Yeah.
but also you'll have new people. So
Yeah.
I just was laughing and rolling my eyes because yeah, I've worked in an organization where every month the same video gets played at induction, and all the leaders who are at induction go, "Oh God, can we change the video?
Oh,
Because I have to see it every month." And I'm like, the point of the induction, it's all the new people, so they've never seen it before.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
suck it up and watch the 5 minutes of it, because
Yeah.
for all these other people, it's really important that that's the first message they get when they enter this organization. And then how do you make that message consistent throughout the organization for the rest of that person's time with you?
Yeah. And everyone, we talk about alignment, we're going to kind of wrap up with alignment. Your team, your senior team, or whatever, they all need to be saying very
Mm.
similar things for the message to really land. And I think we can all just sometimes walk away. Well, we've done that. Right, let's move on because
Mm.
we need to move with pace or whatever.
I love the
Banish
arms
box.
we're going with that as well. And oh, another one for the banish box. We might have almost had a banish box for every episode. Banish box phrase, move with pace.
So to wrap up our how to kind of next steps, someone's listening to this going, yeah, I feel like this is the year for action. I want to be using my profile, my opportunity to influence it in a greater way to help society. Where do you go from here?
I think you have to educate yourself, understand
Yeah.
what matters most to you and your people, and then that will help you to determine where are the places you can have the most influence and take those actions in terms of using your voice and your platform. So I'm just going to say that. I'm going to waffle.
Yeah. Agree. I think that self-reflection piece is really important. Understanding, what type of vocal leader you want to be, and don't try to be perfect, because that's you can never be perfect. It will feel uncomfortable, but that's where your support network, that's where your coach and all those kind of people can be really helpful as you try and navigate your way through this. And most of all, for me, stay accountable, lose the ego. Stop waiting for permission.
I
So,
feel like I've got so much I need to go and do now.
yeah.
I need
yeah.
an audacious target. I need to not worry what anyone else is going to think. Just get out there and blooming well do something.
Just do it. Just take action. Indeed. So that's it. That's another episode.
Thanks for listening to today's episode.
Don't forget to hit follow and share the show with someone you know. Oh, that rhymes.
A rating or review will be much appreciated.
If you're looking for some leadership inspiration, why not get a free copy of our recommended reading list? Visit howtotakethelead.com to download.
Until next week, get out there and take the lead.